I studied entrepreneurship in college, and I fell in love with it. And so I often have that view, or I've embraced that view even more towards music. But what was I saying about shorts? You don't wear shorts.
Oh, you can't wear shorts at the gig.
I do. I have this. That reminds me. I'll have to give a little dress code to the band, the preachers.
Oh, you were talking about people don't realize how much physical work goes into it.
Yeah, so it's not just that physical side of carrying the gear. Think about the work leading up to the show. How much work is being put in, which sometimes a lot of that work is anxiety and worry about whether or not it's going to go. Look, that
I was just about to say though, it's like a lot of every day waking up and keeping the darkness at bay. Okay,
yeah,
it's a lot of time. And energy.
No, man, and look, when you're performing original music that you've written, and you've written it from a place of vulnerability.
Yeah,
it's like going up there and performing a one person monologue. All right, I don't really know how else to say it. I don't know what other example to say. But you're up there and you are, like I am singing about stuff I've gone through, and it's very personal, but I'm also trying to not make it seem like it's super personal.
Yeah.
And trying to put on a show, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think that where, musicians, I'm not trying to complain, but I do see that the value that people give them, certain businesses in terms of what they want to pay, which isn't their fault. Maybe they have a budget, people want to have music, but the value it's a little bit lower, and it's not just like, hey, we showed up, and I've done it. I've winged songs and I hate it. Like, I hate it. And it's not what I ever want to do. And sometimes, sometimes you're doing a job. You're doing a gig that's a job, okay? And you just, you got to do the job. And sometimes you do things you don't like doing at your job. And that's okay. But from those situations, I've always learned that, I would much rather put in the work than coast, because I hate coasting. And I know when I'm coasting, and I beat myself up over it because I'm not giving you, and I'm not being true to me. I'm not giving you as true to myself. But there's so much work that comes from being able to give that true performance. I think somewhat the value on what musicians give and do, at least in some situations that I've been in, it's easy to see how people just don't value it. But once again, that's a subjective statement. It's not universal. There's plenty of people who are willing to give artists a platform to perform, knowing very well they can't pay them enough, but they're giving you that platform to say, hey, we'll pay you X amount of dollars, put a tip jar out, sell your merchandise. We won't take any of it. And that's awesome.
I feel like that's whether it's good or bad, I think that's the direction things are moving, where it's like the club will, or whatever, the venue will give you something. And if you want it to be profitable, you are going to have to make up the difference yourself.
Totally.
However you do that.
And I guess you're absolutely right. And maybe I should take back my statement of people don't realize the value.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong, because there have been shows where it's like, yeah, I mean, we're like, you're happy to go play. It's fun to go play. But, man, you guys are getting a steal for what you are paying for right now. To have this show up and happen, like, making out like bandits over there, guys.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I guess I'm grateful for the places that give you the opportunity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places around the capital region that Savoy always comes to mind. He's always, and he'll say it. He's right up front, like he can't pay a bunch, but he is more than happy to give you the opportunity to play original music.
Yeah.
And that alone is awesome.
And promotes it too. Actually gets behind like getting the word out there and letting people know that it's happening.
Totally.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, and all the other places that do that, I'm sure there's places I'm not mentioning, but I know Ninepin. I love the folks over at Ninepin. They said the same thing. We don't pay much, but they let me play original music. It's pretty much all I can play, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's maybe like the value of an opportunity. But that's until you're worth something, you're at the mercy of you have to kind of work with people. I think maybe you're not at their mercy, but building good working relationships is
feels like a catch-22 to some degree, where it's like if you were worth more money, you'd be getting paid more money.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
yeah, and maybe too, there's some sort of responsibility on our end, which is letting people know how much you're worth, letting people know that people are gonna treat you the way you sort of let them.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the hard way, and they're gonna treat you where you meet them. So if I'm in a sad or upset mood and I'm not being very friendly and you want to give me an offer, you're going to be like, what the hell is this guy's problem?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not any fault of yours. It's that's just how
Right.
we think. So
It's the same with when you don't think highly of yourself.
yeah,
Like if you don't think highly enough of yourself, that's a tough balance to find, because you don't want to come off as pompous and like in love with yourself. But if you're like nervous about and I struggle with this, but if you don't see yourself as good, why should I pay you?
Yeah.
yeah.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
Why should if you can't see it?
Yeah.
How can I expect anyone else to? It's
yeah. Oh man, I've had that experience happen so many times to myself, where I would be playing and I'm just like, nobody likes this. Everybody thinks it's terrible. No one's listening. They're all laughing at me, and that's a very scary place to be, because it could just, that's the little demon. Like he's just like flicking that lighter, like,
Yeah.
And there's, I kind of have to go to myself for a minute and just not do it for anybody else in that moment and just do it for myself. And I see the turnaround. I see when I let go of whatever it is that's grappling me. And there's been times when I haven't been able to, and those are very difficult times. But when I can let go of it, and then all of a sudden realize that if I'm just doing it for me, then I'm putting out this feeling
Yeah.
of where it's satisfying me.
Yeah.
And then by whatever source of energy that is, it's reaching somebody else. And then it's reaching the next person. And then I keep doing it. And then people start feeling it. And then all of a sudden claps come in. And then people come up and say, hey, that was great. Or this was great. It goes from people doing nothing to people interacting. And it's weird.
It's like performing is not the time to think about all the ways in which you would like to be better. Yeah. It's the time to think about, man, I am lucky to be up here doing this, which is what I like to do. Like,
oh man, that's
like
so
if,
true.
if you're not enjoying performing, then like what the fuck is the point?
Yeah.
What is the point? If you can't get out of your head enough to just enjoy being on stage for a little while, then like why the hell are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like I hear you when you say not always successful in that regard, but it's fucking rough.
Yeah. And it's
rough.
weird. It's weird. It's weird in that way to be emotionally tied to something so much. Mm-hmm. I've seen some painters who can paint like on the fly, and the guys that'll do like paintings upside down, and or even people who can draw like caricatures on the street, right? I wonder if those guys ever, or those people ever feel the same. You know, if they're ever like, they finish drawing one, the person's like, "Can I see it?" And they're like, "No," they just rip it up, tell them to get out. Like, I wonder if that ever happens. You know, like
Not for long.
Yeah,
right? You know, like, yeah, there's definitely an emotional battle. And sometimes the stage is a way to get it out. I played a wedding recently, and of all things, a wedding, and I was just having a day, man. I just wasn't, I was there. I showed up. I was professional. I did everything I had to, but something happened when we started playing, and I was just, whatever I was feeling, I was able to kind of turn into this fuel for the performance. And was able to just perform at this level. I mean, I was jumping off of chairs. It was ridiculous. Like, I shouldn't be doing that stuff. I got, like, my knees are like, "What's your problem, man? We stopped doing that stuff 4 years ago." Like, but that's a situation where, I'm able to use that in a good form of fuel. And maybe what I hope and what I kind of want to get to is being able to do that more, because it's not the only time.
Do you find that the wedding gigs, weirdly, because it is doing something you love, but also it's like, you're invested, but you're only so invested that weirdly you are able to get into that better mindset a little easier in that setting versus doing your own stuff?
You mean because the pressure's off?
Like, you want to do well, but at the end of the day, if it goes badly, well, that's we hope that doesn't happen.
Doesn't reflect on your brand.
Well, I can say that I'm that way now.
Yeah.
When I first started with the wedding stuff, I was very uptight, and I expected everybody to be putting the same amount of effort and work that I did. And I would get disappointed in other people. And I may have yelled at some people more than a handful of times.
But if you're the lead singer, that's like pressure's on you.
Yeah, sure. There was a lot of pressure, and being new and inexperienced to the whole thing, and learning how to not only play guitar, not only sing, MC, and manage the PA. Like, that was like, dude, I only have two hands, and they're both playing guitar. Yeah. And my mouth is
signal
speaking,
and signal to the band at the same time.
And my feet are stepping on pedals. Like,
how long have you been doing the weddings?
This is year number 4.
Okay, so at this point, you probably have a group you play with regularly?
I have a few. I mean, there's like 2. I'm a bit of a journeyman, Jimmy, in the wedding. Like, sometimes I'll play with a bunch of people I never played before with.
Okay.
Or just one person. But I also, that used to stress me out. What I learned to realize is that I am chosen to do those things because I can do that.
Yeah.
I can lead this group of people to a place.
You can sell it.
Where it's going to be good.
Right.
I have that skill, which is I didn't realize, and then I realized I have that skill. Like, that was something I learned about myself, right? Which is an awesome compliment. And sometimes, it's like, it's super stressful because somebody's playing marimba on Brown Eyed Girl, and you don't know where it's coming from. You're like, what's going on? This should be organ, man. But then you just gotta be like, but whatever.
I guess it's marimba today.
Tonight it's calypso. Whereas before I would have turned around and been like, why are you doing that? Blah, blah. But then it's just like, yo, man, this guy's just trying. He's just trying like I was trying 3 years ago, and because I played these songs. So it taught me a lot about being a leader in a band. Right. So bands are hard. If anybody's in a band who is going to be watching or listening to this, they are difficult. You should just know that. Just know. You want to start a band? Just know and get ready. It's going to be hard. I'm not saying you're a difficult person or your bandmates are. Being in a band is hard.
And Ben said it perfectly. It's herding cats.
It-
Everybody has their own artistic. It's like they're not dogs. They're cats.
Yeah.
They got their own cool.
Sometimes they just
Yeah.
want
Cats
to
who
like.
drink and smoke too
Yeah,
much.
no. Sometimes you know how cats will be like sitting there and they're looking at you and you're like, "Hey, come here, kitty," and they're like, "Psh, not now." Whereas like your dog's like, "Yeah." No, that's
totally
the
down for
way.
whatever this is.
But
Yeah.
if you're in a band, you're like, "Hey guys," we're like, "Guys, we're gonna do this next song. You guys paying attention? Mm-hmm. All right, you guys ready? Count it off. 1, 2.
It's hard to lead people who are all leaders.
Yeah, dude.
It's like
Totally.
Before we stray too far from the wedding thing, I'm just curious if you have any stories of like epic clusterfucks that you could laugh at now
Oh,
that you
man.
could not laugh at
Oh
when
God.
they happened.
How do I choose?
Anything
Ben?
that comes to mind.
Uh,
Because I've done a few where I don't know, you get done at the end, you're like, I'm glad they were happy because that was rough. that was rough.
So let's see. I have to switch this up into categories because I have moments where things went really wrong, and I have weddings that were just terrible. So this is going to be tough because there is a moment universally known between a handful of people that was just like, it all just happened and we all were just like, that just happened. But I don't know if I can talk about that one because I might be singling somebody out.
All right.
So
Don't single anybody
Yeah,
out.
we don't want to, but
Okay.
you can tell us that after.
I'll just say that there's been experiences with certain musicians who I don't play with anymore that like just mutually everybody was like, what is happening? Like what? And that happens sometimes, you know. It's.
But do the people at the wedding even notice? I mean, they're probably so drunk.
I mean, who knows? You got to figure to some degree. I've definitely played weddings where things haven't gone right and people were upset. Like I
They're
haven't
spending
done
a lot of
many.
money on it, yeah.
I haven't done many, and I'm very grateful for that. You know. But I've only done. I'll give you. This is a great. This is probably the best example, but this is where we played this wedding. We were at Brown's Brewing in Troy, and everything was going great. I did a beautiful ceremony, guitar, and this bride, she was beautiful, man. She was stunning. Like, you know, just the kind of like, wow, you look great. And I don't mean that in like, I'm not trying to objectify her. I'm just saying she has this presence.
It was her wedding. She looked
It was her
amazing.
wedding.
Yeah.
We play the first set and she loves us, you know, and we're killing it. The Revolution Hall sounds great. It's one of the best places to play in. And she comes up to me and she's thanking everyone in the band. She comes up to me and she goes, "And you, my angel." She puts her hands around my face. She gives me a big kiss on the cheek. She goes, You are great. She goes, "I just love you and your energy." And I'm just like, I am flabbergasted. This woman's beautiful. She's kissing my cheeks. I'm staring into her blue eyes, just like, go on. So I'm like, this is a shoo-in. We got this, you know? So somehow, and I will fall on the sword for this one, there's a version of Shout that's the Buffalo Bills do. It must be from, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you know it. They say like, the Buffalo Bills make you want to shout. And then they go, whoa, oh, 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 let's go Buffalo. Okay? That's the two things.
Got it.
Two things, Jimmy. All right? That I forgot. I also just I didn't notice. You know, I didn't notice. So we play Shout. And I don't do the let's go Buffalo. She asked for the microphone. At this point, she's very drunk. I knew she was drunk when she grabbed my face.
This
and
is
called me
like
her
towards the
angel.
end of the
This is towards the
evening,
end.
yeah,
This is like
yeah.
last 3 songs, maybe 4 songs. So we don't do the Buffalo thing. We didn't sing the Buffalo Bills Make Me Want to Shout. And then it was like all of a sudden her and all her bridesmaids were like against us. She was like so mad. We didn't give her the microphone, which may have been our fault.
You sinned against her tribe.
We did. And they were like, then they just stopped dancing. They were like all consoling her. They didn't come up and thank us. Like, but then we're like loading out and everybody else in the wedding is like, you guys were awesome. So like everybody else is like, so we're all like, okay, maybe.
Better hope the dad's paying.
Yeah. Like maybe tomorrow everybody will be like, you just got a little too drunk. Or maybe they'll be like, yeah, F that band. I don't know. But, you know, those situations.
It's such a strange thing to be inconsolable about.
It's so weird, but you can feel it.
I feel so bad for this woman because she looks absolutely beautiful on her wedding day, like a princess, you know, like out of a fairy tale. The way you're describing it, it's like she's glowing.
Yeah,
it's the perfect day for her, and that is the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing that you can't handle.
Maybe who knows?
She must really like that really terrible football team.
Yeah. You know.
I hope Dan doesn't see this.
Who knows?
I hope he does.
Who knows why anybody?
I'll ask Dan. You should ask Dan DeKalb about this.
Who knows? He would know. He would know.
There's probably. I think Buffalo Bills fans are pretty hardcore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be hardcore to love a team, whether they lose or not, or lose.
No, whether they lose, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, that was interesting. But you know, what do you do? You just,
you cash that check and you go home.
You do, man. You just go to the next one. But yeah. So weddings. Yeah.
I mean, I've done one before where at the end, I remember it being like almost this hopeful feeling because it could not be worse than what just happened. And if you can get through, if you could get through what just happened, where it's all smooth sailing from here.
So vague. I want to know what things
happened. It was like everyone was collectively doing their part to really make it a bad game.
Oh boy,
it was a group effort.
Weddings.
So yeah, but leading, right? Like that's where we started,
yeah.
Right? Like, and in that situation. So going back to. You know, and I've been in that situation too, Ben, where like you play a song and it's just like, well, this sounds nothing at all like the song. You're playing a drum beat that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And what do? You know, you have to just lean in.
Yeah.
And you go to a place where you feel like this is okay to stop. But, you know, as a leader, what do? Do you not hold that person accountable? Like, that's where I've learned to be much softer with it. And I've learned to be a better leader in terms of making sure everybody's prepared with thorough information. But that's like kind of the hard part about being a leader in any situation. You know, like my band is really 3 friends who are all part of the wedding band who I asked who thankfully like the music and are intrigued enough to play with it, but by no means are they obligated.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But, you know, I won't yell at those guys, but I still have to have certain points where, like, if it's not sounding the way I want it to sound.
Could you please just not do it that way?
I have to say, I have to be like, hey, there's got to be more, and you got to give me more of that, and you got to give me some of this, and that's okay. It doesn't mean what you're doing is bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like at the same time, what I'm working on a lot is also being open to that same feedback.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very much struggle with that sometimes, especially with something I'm insecure with.
Yeah. I think the thing with music, especially a band, is everyone's really in it. It's tough to follow someone in your artistic endeavor. It's difficult, but you need it.
You do.
Like, you need someone to be, otherwise it's just chaos. You need someone to be in charge. but you have to really trust that person, because it's like, this is me too. You know, this is my own artistic expression as well. But I need you to lead me. But like, I need you. I don't want to be the leader. So that's the other thing. Like, it's got to be difficult if there's multiple people who think they want to be the one who's leading. But in my experience,
I feel like most people don't.
Yeah, most people don't want to lead anyone, but they want to lead themselves. They don't want to be led.
Yeah.
They don't want to be led, but they don't want to be leaders.
Right. No, that's a good way to put it. Totally. Yeah, I've I've noticed that. That used to frustrate me a lot. Was that, like, I used to see, like, everybody wants to be the star, but nobody wants to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
You know, it is difficult being the guy who has to, like I don't want to be the disciplinarian in any situation, you know? And I hate, like, you know, by default, I'm a very nice person, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I realized when I first started doing this, there were people who would walk over me, and not just the weddings, in the band. Mm-hmm. And I think I've talked with a couple other people, like, in the band, there's always got to be that person. Like, someone's got to be the asshole. Mm-hmm. At some point, someone's got to drop the hammer, and everybody has to be okay with that, because that same person who's doing that is the person who's, you know, if they weren't there, mm-hmm. neither would you be. Yeah. Like, this whole thing would fall apart. And I think that's, like, and that's tough, because even some, like I said, like, I struggle with taking that feedback, being a leader, but then also allowing myself to be led by somebody else and not feeling insecure. Why are they leading me? It's because they think I'm not capable of doing it. Because you know, like, all those evil questions. I mean, there's a give and take.
It's got to be weird for you too, just because, like, your band is, like, really fucking good.
Oh yeah.
So
a band full of the best musicians.
So when they tell you something, it's got to be hard to ignore
drop some
that.
names here. Like,
all right.
Let's talk about
shout out the preachers.
Yeah.
So on rhythm and lead guitar, we have Mr. John Drabick,
who's fantastic.
Yeah, totally. In fact, he's the man who played that solo on Bad Cigarettes.
Makes sense.
I'll tell you a story about that in a little bit, if you want me to. On drums, we have Mr. Dylan Susky. Dylan, I hope I'm saying that right. And Dylan's an awesome drummer who I got to know last year, and the first gig I played with him, I was like, this guy is just awesome. And and it's nothing against the other drummers I've played with, but sorry guys. Good. Oh, yeah. I almost had it. My impressive fly catching skills were almost caught on camera. I just really liked how he played, and there's a certain way certain drummers hit. And then Dan Lawson on bass guitar,
who's offensively good. He's ridiculous. Just as a bass player, I feel the need to just put it out there. He's ridiculously good.
You've played with a lot of people, though.
It's demoralizing.
Dan is very good, and they're all just great people too. Aside from being incredible musicians, they're just fun people, man, and full of knowledge. And but yeah, no, I have played with a lot of people, both here, and I used to live in Boston, and before then I was in Syracuse.
There's a video of you on YouTube playing with Chris Malloy.
Yeah, well, that's a long time ago. Yeah. That was the first time I tried to.
You look different.
Oh yeah, I was much different, shorter hair. Yeah. Yep, that was when I was just discovering who played music around the area. And Chris Malloy, I love Chris. He's a great guy, and him and his brother make great music. I like it. And Chris did an awesome job.
James Rock plays with you too sometimes.
He did. He used to when I had keys in the band. That was a different time. That was when I was like kind of testing the waters and bringing my my music out. In fact, a few of those songs that we used to play, we still play, but they're a little bit different now. But yeah, that was early stages in Albany of the Andrew Mirabile project. and then yeah, there was one show I played. I don't know what I was thinking. We had 2 days of rehearsal, and I had a 7-piece band. We were playing outside.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah,
I think I was at this gig.
You were
At that little the intersection right next to Lionheart.
Yeah, what's that park called?
Washington Park?
Dana Park.
Dana Park. Yep, I was at that gig.
Yeah, it did not. It did not go the way I wanted it to go.
I thought it sounded good. I remember thinking it sounded good.
Thank you. But anybody who's, when you play outside, it's such a different game. Nothing sounds right. Everything sounds different. And then I had this 7-piece band with 2 rehearsals. But I didn't know how to be a leader. This is a perfect example of not knowing how to be a leader, because in that situation, I definitely could have led those guys. But being a leader would have been like, I'm the most solid element in this band.
Yeah.
Or me and Chris are the most solid elements because we're the 2 guitar players. So everybody should either be watching myself or Chris. Mm-hmm. And either one of us starts the songs at all points in time. And, of course, I wanted it to be, I wanted to make sure everybody was showcased.
A rambling party
kind
of thing.
Which it wasn't, if we had all been playing for a year or even 5 months and people knew the material like that, that would have been allowable. But that gig, while it probably sounded fine to my own standards, it haunted me for weeks after that. In fact, after that gig, I shut it down.
When was that?
This was 2000 and...
It's got to be like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
2016. Summer of 2016. It was in the fall, I think.
It was tail end of the summer.
Tail end, but yeah, that was the last gig I played out with a band until the Preachers reemerged in June of 2018, I believe.
About a year. You got a year.
Yeah.
You're a year in.
So, he got him. Nicely done.
Oh, I didn't kill him though.
But yeah. So that was, it's funny. That's great to bring that up, because that was a point where I said, okay, I want something and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough to figure it out anyway, but I imagine it's harder when like you have to rely on other people to figure it out. Like I have to try this with these people. I have to try it with these instruments. I have to try it with all this stuff, and I have to play it live because I that's what I need to do. And then it's like, yeah, okay. It's like sculpting. Like, sculpture, you have a block and you got to reduce it down to the essence of what it is. That's why I think your sound is so solid. Your sound is your sound. It's very clearly what it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much for saying that.
It's you know what you are. You know what your sound is, and it makes sense. It's hard to do, I imagine, because it's hard to limit anything. It's difficult.
It is. That's true.
Having choices is fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always.
Eliminating options is not fun. It's not.
But necessary.
Yeah. You can't make anything if you could do anything.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just gonna be like, it's just gonna sound like a bunch of
ill-defined nonsense.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm realizing there's not going to be a good point for me to jump in and say this. I am trying to get to this gig, which has started.
You're good.
So I need to leave.
You're good.
Ben's leaving.
Sorry.
You're good.
Ben's Exit is also
Ben's
brought
Exit.
to you by Polar Seltzer.
Peace.
Ben Woodul, everybody.
Hey,
From Dark Honey.
thanks, Ben. It was great to see you too.
Scout your dog.
All right, maybe I'll slide over there.
Sure.
I'll slide over there
Sure.
somewhere across.
But while you're moving, I wanted to say that for me, I felt that experience was necessary. This sort of, I want to use the phrase trial by fire. Somehow that feels like it's going to work, but I don't know what. But I did. I felt like, because I didn't know what I wanted sound-wise, that I had to be presented with this situation that wasn't ideal.
Sure.
That made me leave it and say, I don't want to do this again until I am ready. And then spent a lot of time figuring out what that all looked.
Sure, I get it.
And
I mean,
felt like,
if you think of painting a landscape, right? Maybe you start with a rough idea of what time of day it is and if it has mountains or not. You know?
yeah,
You don't paint
yeah,
trees first. You know, you don't paint the wildlife first. You don't paint the little details at the beginning. You start with the backdrop. You start with the very vague, big picture. And it's like out of focus. You know, like it becomes in focus as you limit yourself. You're like, oh, I know what this is. This is a sunset, or this is a, I don't know. This is soul. This is, you know, this is like you said, that outlaw rock, like that outlaw country. Like I bet that's a particular thing. If you want that kind of a sound in there, there are things you just can't do in that, and there are things that you have to do in it.
yeah.
But you can't know that until you hear it, and you're like, actually, that's not really fitting. This doesn't fit into the sound I had in my.
It's healthy sometimes to have restrictive parameters on what you're creating.
I think our generation in general struggles with this in any domain, that we're addicted to options.
Yeah.
And we like to be able to make choices, but never to make them. Because if you make a choice, you've made the choice.
Right. And you've cut off any other You've cut off any other opportunity to make an additional choice.
Exactly.
We have this infinite options, right? You go on Netflix. What do I want to watch? TV shows, movies, documentaries, cartoons, comedies, and you can just keep going. You can be like, oh, I don't want Netflix. Let me check Hulu. Oh, there's nothing on Hulu. Let me go to Amazon Prime. You know, what's on HBO? And that's just one, you know, and even with where we want to shop, what we want to buy, we have more options than I think ever with anything, man. Even with like your phone, buying your phone isn't just getting a phone. And what kind of case you want?
Yeah.
You want that privacy screen? You know, do you want one? Yes or no? Like, what's your plan? Family plan? Like just you?
I think we do it with human beings.
And that was my finale. That's what I was gonna land on. Then dating, right?
Yeah, that's a perfect
Which
example.
we totally do it in, and it was interesting to feel that. And I'll say this, and I'm not. I guess something that became more apparent to me in the past few years was people talking about this idea of polyamory. It's more than a few years. It's been like 6 years. I was introduced to it in Boston. And look, if that's the way that you feel good and you do it and it works for you, that's incredible. You know, it's amazing. And I will say, speaking from personal experience, there is a lot you can gain and understand about yourself and your feelings towards jealousy and your feelings of understanding that you need to constantly be validated. I think there's something to be learned from exposing yourself to the ideology of what that means and thinking about what it looks and feels like for you. Because it operates on both sides, because we have this idea now that is more popular that is like, I don't have to choose. I don't have to be with this one person. If I don't like you, I can just go back to the app on my phone and swipe until somebody says yes, you know? And depending on where you live, depending on who you are, like there's a million different ways to meet people digitally. If you want to pay for it or not. But then also I think that what happens is we have these two extremes. We have the people who just are unlimited with choices and can never sort of settle or stay with one person. And they're just kind of constantly distracted by what new possibilities could be happening. And there's the people who just lock on and lock in.
This is a topic that I've thought a lot about, so I'm very curious to hear.
So I think on either side of that is a dive into self-understanding and self-love. Okay? So if you hold on to someone very tightly, it's because you have a fear of losing that person, whether you have a fear of losing somebody, whether it's a trauma in your past, or whether you don't want to be alone. Mm-hmm. But that's not good either, because you can't control or hold on to people like that, whether you want them to stay or not. People are always going to make their own individual choices. So there's always a factor you don't have control over. So you will continue to try to control, but you will never get it because it's unobtainable. Then when you have the side of infinite choices, you will just keep thinking that the next thing is going to be the best thing. But as you continue to fall and dive into the choices and the unlimited options, you'll never find the best thing because you'll just keep wondering, which is, that's going to happen with anything you consume. And what you've created is a dependency on something else to give you a sense of joy or validation. And you've created this pattern when the real central issue exists within yourself. And the central issue, and this is by all means just my opinion, but also the opinions of people I've had this conversation with, the central issue is really learning how to love yourself. And I say that as someone who's struggled with learning how to love themselves for a very long time. But when you learn how to truly love who you are and be okay, maybe being single, and it's a struggle for me. I say this just as much to myself as to anybody else, but understanding what it means to love yourself, I think begins to eliminate some of the fears that live on both those sides. The fear of missing out on the next best person, or the fear of losing that best person. Because those fears are no longer there because you're living in this world of, well, I know and love myself for who I am. Mm-hmm. And are you bringing value? Are you bringing an addition into my world? Or are you subtracting? And I think it makes you able to see that much more clearer. And this is spoken from someone who has not had many good relationships in their life. So I also come from this area of struggle, right? So I will say the thing that I learned from kind of being in a relationship with someone who was polyamorous was how competitive we are with the way, how competitive we are with who loves us. I don't know, how can I phrase this? Competitive in the way of oh, you're giving your attention and affection to somebody else. But also realizing it wasn't just a relationship thing. It was also
I want to say something. So
Yeah.
that shouldn't bother you. Somebody giving their attention and affection to someone shouldn't by default bother you. You know, like it's different if somebody's flirting, you know, but it feels like making a problem where there isn't really one.
Sure.
You know, so I kind of see these two things as two ways not to deal with the problem. The problem is jealousy is a real thing. The problem is there's a lot of problems. The problem is sex is complicated.
Yeah.
There's a problem is emotion is very tied to sex. I have a hard time with the idea that it's not. I have a really hard time with the idea of separating it. I don't see it. I can't. That's somebody else can. I would never want to get in their way. But personally, I don't see it. I see it as an emotional thing. It's a so the polyamory thing, it won't work for me ever. It's not something I could do. I think it could work for some people. I think logistically it can become confusing. But it can. So the argument for polyamory is you need different things from different people, which is a fair argument.
Sure.
You really do. And I think that's
True.
a part of a healthy relationship is understanding I can't give you everything. And
Yeah.
you can't give me everything. And I'm a person separate from you as much as I am. Like, I need things to talk to you about, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like if all we do is see each other all the time, it's going to be really boring really quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing is, so that's like the end from the non-polyamorous, from the monogamous angle. The point would be accepting that reality. You know, that's you basically what it's saying is you need to trust your partner. You if you don't trust your partner, is it really even a relationship? Is it like what are you saving? What are you protecting?
What and trusting your partner comes from knowing what you need from your partner, and knowing what you need from your partner comes from knowing what you need for yourself.
That's true.
And how you love yourself. Right.
I do want to say, I think in both those worlds, the problems are people who don't know how to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you don't know how to be alone, you become a slave to other people in one way or another. Either you're a slave to other people in a way that feels like, well, at least I have somebody else to fall back on. That's not good. That's not to me, that's not healthy. If you're in a polyamorous relationship because you're afraid of being alone, that's not good. If you're in a relationship because you're afraid of being alone, it's not good.
Yeah.
Like in both ways, it's going to manifest differently. In one, it's apathy. I would argue that in a relationship, you would become possessive. If you're afraid of being alone, if you don't like yourself, you become possessive of the person who you think makes you worth something. In a polyamorous relationship, if you don't like yourself, I think you can become apathetic. You know, you can become nihilistic and not really think it really matters when somebody betrays you or like, you know what I mean? Or like, I don't know. I realize that in polyamorous relationships, they would say you would talk about that. You would like, I don't know. I have a hard time with it.
Look, and that's okay. It's okay to have a hard time. I'm not saying that I am by any means. I happen to be someone who has a little bit of experience.
Yeah, I've been invited into that world.
Yeah.
I knew myself enough to know that no, that's not my healthy way of dealing with jealousy. My healthy way of dealing with jealousy is being like, oh wow, somebody likes her. Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
like,
mean that's
like,
that's a great.
It's
Yeah.
like okay, good. That makes me feel good, but also like, hey, maybe I should do something with her. You know, maybe I should like show her I care. Maybe I should, you know, maybe I'm not,
Right.
you know, like not in a bad way, not in a like I have to keep you around, but in a way that's like, oh wow, you're really desirable, because you can forget how desirable your partner is.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I think.
I think so.
When you're with them for a long time, it's really easy to take advantage of somebody that you feel like you got in the bag. You know, like they'll never cheat on me. You know?
Right.
So it's almost better to have a little bit of a place where it's like let a little bit of that jealousy in and be like, oh, you know, like, oh, okay.
And that's
That's for me. I like a little bit of it. Like,
no, hey, I can't even tell you what I guess for me the little bit of jealousy, it makes me want to prove in this weird way how, like, you know, much it sounds very competitive, very like male competitive. You know, I know the thing about polyamory, one of the things I've heard discussed the most about it when it comes to jealousy is overcoming jealousy and learning how to truly love unconditionally, understanding that because I choose to love and sleep and have a relationship with another person doesn't diminish the love I have for you.
I think that's great. I just don't think I don't think.
Sure, but what if we take it out of the context of the relationship and we apply that same ideology to just being human, right?
Totally.
Like, and that's
Yes.
and it took me a bit to learn it, and I'm still learning it. But what I took away was learning how to love myself more. And I think even in those moments of jealousy, there is that bit of like, well, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, that's not good.
And there is insecurity in jealousy. Like that
I don't think it always has to be.
You know, I can't. You may be right. I can say that for me personally.
It could be
my
a definition
jealousy
problem. It could be a definition problem.
My jealousy usually stems from insecurity. Like if I'm jealous that like some other band got on this cool bill, it's because I'm insecure about something
That's interesting.
that I'm not doing.
Sometimes I'll have that jealousy feeling, and it just pushes me to be like, okay, what is it that I could do better?
Yeah, in a healthy way, for sure.
What is it that not for like, not because I think I'm not good enough, but because I hate that the language is tough, because you almost don't ever want to feel like you're good enough, but you don't want to ever feel like you're not good enough. Do you know? It's right. Like you want to be improving.
You just want to feel like you're okay being yourself. Like being you is great.
But sometimes that little feeling of jealousy tells me, oh, I have not really been paying attention to this area of my life. You know, I have not.
Yeah, there's a healthy competitiveness in that. And
I don't even want to beat him. I just like, it just makes me realize.
Sure.
Like the band thing is a great example. So if I see somebody, I'm not in a band, so it's tough. But if I was in a band and I saw somebody who was doing something I wanted to do, the bad part would be when I start to feel like, why them and not me? Well, there's two ways to ask that question.
Yeah.
In that tone of voice. I've asked
myself that question many times.
In that tone of voice, that's not good. Why them and not me?
No, it's a bad place.
I'm implying that they don't deserve it. But instead, if I come at it with, oh man, good for them. Why them? Not me.
You're right.
You know, like what is it?
It's a different attitude.
It's a totally different attitude.
It's more like, good for them. How did they do that?
Yes.
And how can I do that?
What is it that I'm not paying attention to?
Yeah. Like, what am I not doing?
Yeah.
This is just healthy thinking and unhealthy thinking.
That's true.
You know, but that's
so tricky.
That's the danger of jealousy, right? Is it can lead to an abusive relationship or an improvement on yourself, depending on who the person is.
Yeah.
You know, so once again, trying to eliminate that, learning how to love unconditionally.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, because it might be a definition issue here. So like, do you think would it be correct in your way of thinking of jealousy to say you could be jealous of someone you trust absolutely? Like you could be jealous, let's say with a partner, like let's say that, like you trust your partner, you know they're not going to do anything, you know that they're not flirting, you know they're not doing anything inappropriate, let's say. You trust them implicitly. Mm-hmm. You have no doubts in your mind about anything about what you know your relationship is, whatever that relationship is, whether it's monogamous or not. If you just could you still feel jealous in moments because of the way someone is looking at them?
Yeah, I mean, I might be the best person to ask questions to about emotional ups and downs. Yeah, and I've been jealous on a couple different accounts. So I would have this total trust, and then like, if I'm not feeling good about myself, which is where it all stems from. It all stems from this lack of love for the self. Okay. The lack of me feeling good about myself are going to bring upon my insecurities. My insecurities are then going to seep out to others around me. But it's really just a mirror projection, you know? And then I'll turn that into, okay, somebody's looking, or this guy's talking to her, and look, oh, she's laughing. Oh, he's making her laugh. I haven't made her laugh like that in a long time. Or this is something even weirder. If I'm feeling insecure about myself and they're just happy and going through their days and getting all their stuff done and just, like doing everything, I'll get jealous of that. But that's what I've learned is that's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're just being themselves.
I get it.
And I've been on the other side too. I've been on the side too where like I have a very outgoing personality. So if I'm in a comfortable, if I go to a party, which I haven't been to one in a very long time, I would like to. But if I'm in a social situation where I feel primarily comfortable, I'm going to talk to people. And it's going to be fairly easy because I'm interested in people. I'm interested in getting to know people. I like the opportunity to get to know other people who I haven't met before or catch up with people that I have. But I've been in relationships where my outgoingness was a threat because it's so easy for me to meet people and so easy for people to talk to me. And that if I went out by myself to a place, there was that fear. But it's not me, it's that other person. And the same thing when I project that. It's not them, it's me.